Now we are on to the next section of the evening, which is basically you're going to hear from clients that we've coached. And we're going to start with Sophie. Sophie, I can see you're there. So I'm just going to ask you to unmute and start your video. And welcome.
Hello.
Hello. Hey, how are you?
Not bad, thank you. I've just got back. I've just been rushing to get home now. Yeah.
The usual ADHD way. This is one of our superpowers. We can do things at the last minute.
Definitely.
Yeah, so Sophie is one of actually fairly new to coaching, not someone that's actually even completed the kind of coaching block of sessions that we usually give. But why I invited Sophie to come and speak to you was because quite quickly we were able to make some good changes for you, I think, in your workplace setting with, your manager. And so it'd be great if you could maybe let participants know kind of, well, firstly, why you came to coaching. And so far, how you benefited from it?
I would say why I came for coaching is because I needed someone to help me organise myself, and I had recently been diagnosed with ADHD. Didn't really know a lot about it or how my weaknesses, if you like, were related to ADHD. So by me doing the coaching, it helped me understand me a bit more. And then not only that, the more I understood, the more I could explain it to others. And then likewise, by having Steph as a coach, Steph was able to then educate those around me. So then they could get the ADHD lens, if you like, and just put it into better words so they could understand. So it just basically removed the barriers, which was good and very much needed. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard, isn't it? Like when, so recently diagnosed with ADHD, you don't kind of know exactly what the challenges are. You just know that you're getting frustrated and you're feeling like you keep being blocked and, you don't understand why. Yeah. So would you say that was kind of happening a bit?
Yeah, I think it's definitely helped to remove some barriers and help with ease some of the frustration. And then by that happening, you can then continue to develop as you should. So it then becomes more of a strength than a weakness, which is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you've got real strengths, like a lot of ADHD is, and I think we talked about how you're more the canary in the mine type of ADHD, and the standard. I don't think you realize we talked about the kind of high standard that you set yourself, and what most ADHDers do, we tend to kind of expect other people to set the same standard and want the same thing and want to do as good a job and actually be capable of doing as good a job. Would you say that's fair to say?
Yeah, definitely. Yes.
Yeah. And the thing with your type ADHD and the person who you are, a lot of these really, these skills that you've got, things that you can do probably fairly effortlessly, like you do it kind of naturally, because it doesn't take effort. You feel that, well, everyone can do that. Everyone would think this. Everyone would see that, because it doesn't take you probably any proactive effort. Is that?
Yeah. It's mind yourself when others don't do the same as you or think the same. Yeah.
Yeah. So how's the coaching kind of helped, navigate that issue, would you say?
I think the best thing was basically you meeting with my manager, or one of the most helpful things, should I say, meeting with my manager to explain things like from how I see the world and that point of view. And then like with the RSD, I didn't really know about that properly until I came to you. So then you explaining that to me and then to my manager, it helped like her have the insight and the understanding, and then that enabled us both to be less frustrated and build those bridges so we could move forward and both like excel with our working relationship, which I think was really good. And I think it was mainly about that then reduces your barriers, so you're less likely to be isolated, you're less likely to have reduced confidence. So yeah, I think it's been very helpful. And then just helping to, I don't know, I think sometimes you need someone else's viewpoint just to explain it to you. And then you can then also understand their viewpoint, because there's some things that I miss about them and vice versa. So having that person almost mediate is good to see, isn't it? And then you can understand each other's point of view, because it all comes down to communication at the end of the day. So it is good. Yeah.
And communication, you probably learned this as well in the coaching, communication for ADHD it's one of our challenges. There's several reasons why. Like, what would you say in terms of communication for you? What are the challenges would you find?
I would say it's hard to make yourself vulnerable, and for when you're, especially when you're newly diagnosed and you're struggling to come to terms with it, then feeling like that you've got this new profound weakness that is technically a disability, it's then hard to convey that to other people, even that when you need help and you need them to understand. So having someone external help you do that, but put it in a way that is more strength focused rather than weaknesses, it helps you to progress and get over that effectively, and not see it as a negative but more as a positive. And you just see things and do things differently, but it's not a bad thing. And it's more around educating others that's needed for you to excel, and then effectively you develop the team or the company or whoever you work for, which is good.
Yeah, that was really, really articulately put, because it is very much the case, isn't it? Like, you need to educate others, but to educate others, you need to know yourself. You need to
Yeah.
kind of know what's going on yourself.
Yeah, that's hard to do when you don't necessarily understand everything yourself, because it's brand new to you as well. So that's good.
Exactly. So as the
Yeah.
coaching, would you say the coaching has kind of helped you, like given you a bit of the words, right, in terms of maybe some of those challenges, some of the needs that you have to be able to
Yeah,
then communicate?
yeah, definitely. I think it's definitely helped with the understanding and explaining. So it's hard to say. I think it has very much had a very positive effect, and I don't think we'd be where we are today without it, which is really good. I just hope that obviously continues. So that'd be good.
It's hard, isn't it? Because you learn things in coaching. One of the issues we have, obviously, is that weak working memory. So sometimes it's like, yes, that's what I need to do, and I've got to remember that. And it's obviously that's going to be a problem, right? Because we don't remember the things that are going to help us. So yeah, how have you been able to get around that? Like, how have the lessons kind of embedded for you?
I think it's been around as well, like your reasonable adjustments. So why they are needed, 'cause some people might see them as a waste of resources, or well, you can just do this to do that, but they don't understand that the reason that is there is to make it like a level playing field, because they might take something for granted that I can't do, or I struggle to do more so than the others. So it just means, rather than exhausting myself unnecessarily, it just gives you that leg up to make it like level. And I think sometimes some people needed educating around that as well. But you were probably the better person to do that, because you could explain it in a more scientific way effectively. So that would help. And then that aids
Yeah,
their understanding. But then it's like, oh, I didn't see it like that. So
yeah.
it's just
I wouldn't.
like the little things.
Yeah, I definitely think looking through the RSD lens, like we talk about looking through the ADHD lens and being able to do that and how important that is. But, a lot of the time, as you know, in the workplace in particular, it's that rejection sensitive dysphoria lens, being able to, and a manager being able to recognize, because, a lot of maybe, the misunderstandings, the way that the manager's communicating, without that lens, they're not going to make sure that communication is safe. they're not going to address any potential objections you may have, things that you could maybe construe as maybe an attack, or so I think for the managers it's really important that they understand that aspect of ADHD and learn how to communicate more safely. So kind of what did you start seeing once that message was relayed, once your manager could look through more of an RSD lens?
It was honestly a complete transformation. It was like a magic wand had just been waved. It was uh, just the way, just the tone, the conduct, everything changed for the better. And I think they had good intentions before, but maybe didn't realise. So that then helped to like concrete that and understand, just gave them a new perspective and a new way of like communicating for them, which was then really beneficial for both of us. And then you could then build the bridges and move forward.
Yeah. And because otherwise, what do you think would have happened if if that lens wasn't given to your manager? What would have happened?
Things communication wise would have just broken down and got worse and been quite catastrophic, whether or not I'd probably left for a new job or escalated things in a different way. So it did have its definite benefits, because obviously none of that's happened and it's all been positive.
Yeah, so it's a shame, isn't it? Like, in terms of raising awareness, how important do you think it is for managers, for workplaces to be able to understand ADHD and appreciate the RSD effect?
I think extremely important, because you could have a good employee who's not actually fulfilling their potential just through lack of misunderstanding. It seems a shame. So if you can have that and remove those barriers, it could open up quite a lot of opportunities for them and for you. So
Yeah, it makes a big difference, doesn't it? And we're really glad that we're able to help you with that. And then in terms of staying engaged at work, obviously, so we talked about RSD, then there's also obviously authentic interest, staying authentically interested. That's the fuel for the brain, our ADHD brain, staying engaged like that. So yeah, how what have you learned in coaching around, what you need in order to stay engaged at work?
I think it's helped having almost like a cheerleader, if you like, in your corner, and then breaking down into smaller goals effectively. Like some things, times I think we probably overlook the little details sometimes, and you lose sight of the bigger picture, and you just need someone to like bring you back down and keep you focused that way, and that's helpful. And then you keep your mojo effectively and keep excelling that way. That's
Yeah, so
good.
you're talking about the perspective, isn't it? Because like in terms
Yeah,
of your priorities, it's
yeah,
hard, isn't it?
and
Did you want to maybe elaborate on that? Yeah.
yeah, so that's good.
Yeah. Because ADHD is, we tend to, when we're in an environment, that environment tends to become our world. Have
Yeah.
you noticed that? Yeah. And I mean, yeah, I mean, your world at the moment, right? You're pregnant,
Yeah.
right? But when you're in that world of work, and there are demands, and what kind of happens to that, focus?
It depends. Sometimes it's hard to focus if the environment's busy, and then if you've got baby brain it on top of that, and then frustrated 'cause you can't do normal. So it has helped with that focus with all the changes. That's been good.
Yes, that acceptance, isn't it? Us ADHDers, we're not very good at letting
No.
go, and yeah, not very good at like even getting perspective. We lose perspective. Expectations become maybe unachievable, and then a lot of frustration, arises because of that.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's
Is it
definitely
more?
helped grounded effectively and give you
And
that outlook back and clarity when things
yeah,
get.
kind of, and making your peace, like in terms of the things you can control, things you can't control.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's been, I mean, it's been a journey. So I guess what would you advise to any employee with ADHD that is kind of struggling at work, particularly with their manager? Yeah, what would you advise them in terms of the support?
I would definitely say about contacting Access to Work so you can get the coaching support and the educational support, because I think it is transformational in the best way possible. And it's not something that takes a lot of time or resources, really. It's just about educating, understanding, but the outcomes are amazing. So it's definitely worth doing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. And we hold an Access to Work application session every month.
Yeah.
So, yeah, because we know ADHD is, we're not very good at admin, are we? And that's another thing, maybe as well, before you go, talking about that element of the job. So, yeah, tackling admin and repetitive tasks. Yeah, how is it for an ADHD in the workplace having to do these things?
Uh, if you're interested in them, it's not too bad. If you're not, then you forget that you've even got them. So I think it's helpful from that point of view to have those reminders to do certain things and have those short-term goals just to keep you on task effectively, but then also why you're doing them, etc. Because sometimes you lose sight of like the big picture again.
So keeping your eye on your why, or reminding yourself of what's at stake, what do you stand to gain or lose. So giving
Yeah,
again context to make it relevant, right? Because otherwise, again, what if an ADHD thinks there's no point to something? So if you
there's
think if your manager asks you, yeah. So what would you what would you advise managers how to get the best out of their employee with ADHD? What would you advise?
I would advise one to speak to them firstly in a way that's comfortable for both of them. So they're more likely to be honest and open. And then also to contact like yourself for that extra educational and insight so that you've then got all the tools you need to support or understand, because then it'll only benefit both of you.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. And in terms of your strengths and leveraging your strengths, and in terms of leveraging an employee's strengths with someone with ADHD, how important is it that the manager is able to create opportunities for that ADHD to leverage their strengths?
I would say massive. It's very important. And then the more they feel valued and the more they see themselves growing and developing, the more they'll give and the more you'll get. That'd be,
Yeah,
yeah.
it is key, isn't it? That kind of concept of that reciprocity, if I'm saying that correctly. It's about that fairness, isn't it? Because what happens if you feel like you're being treated unfairly? What happens to an ADHD's engagement?
I would say you go the opposite way. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mm. So that kind of recognition and, creating opportunity, feeling heard
yeah, very
and
important.
value is,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah.
And I think obviously need to understand that in order to rectify it or manage themselves and how they manage others. So that's part
Yeah.
of like being a good manager is knowing what works for people and what doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah. And we know, and through the coaching, we know what an amazing manager you will make one day.
Thanks.
It's true. It's true. Well, so thank you so much. Thanks so much for sharing. Amazing. Really helpful. And I'm sure you've inspired, informed, everyone on here. And we'll make sure as well we get the word out too, because what you've contributed, it really is valuable for ADHDs, but also managers in the workplace, definitely. So
Yeah,
thank you, Soph.
you're welcome.
Happy
All right.
Halloween.
You too. See
Trick
you
or
later.
treat.
Bye.
Okay, so that was Sophie, and yeah, fantastic person to coach. Obviously, you can tell very clever, very insightful, and we're really pleased to be able to help repair her relationship with her manager. And yeah, she will go from strength to strength. Now she understands her ADHD. She really does have those kind of leadership strengths.